Колеги, доброго дня усім. Мене звати Ірина Швець. Я представляю громадянську мережу ОПОРА. І сьогодні ми раді
My name
вітати.
is Irina Shvets. Today we are happy to welcome everyone interested in the IT, technology, IT solutions in favor of the community, digitalization reform, and also fans of the big tech. Today we have a responsible day. We are starting the Forum of Personal Democracy 2020. This is the fourth one in Ukraine. In the past years, such events took place in Kiev. In 2018, we held a forum in Kharkiv. From New Year, Kiev was planned in Lviv, like many large events, fora and conferences due to the epidemic of coronavirus. We have to meet online. However, we as organizers hope that we did our best to make this format as good as any other and would not affect quality of our discussion. The forum will last 3 days. The throughput topic is local dimension of digital transformation. And today and tomorrow, we shall speak about the reform of digitalization, of how civil society is involved, and what are the advantages it may receive from such a reform. On the third day of the forum, we shall have 3 thematic panels on adjacent topics: digital economy, digital inclusion and accessibility, and cybersecurity. We invite all the participants, the registered ones, those watching online, to take an active part, to discuss, to have questions on the chat, to make comments of the speakers. As they will all be translated into 3 languages: Ukrainian, English, Polish. Please don't forget to choose the channel of interpretation that will be most convenient. And also we thank our media partner Gazeta UI for support, for the kind support, and the viewers can also welcome the podcasting on the Facebook page. Before we go to the first thematic panel, by the rule of good tone, I would like to give the floor for the welcoming address on behalf of all of the organizers of today's Forum of Personal Democracy. Representatives of OSCE, ODIR, as well as National Forum of Democracy Support for joint capability to organize the event. The floor for the welcoming address is given to the one who opened every PDF in Ukraine. So please welcome Olga Ivazovska, Chairman of the Board of ОПОРА Civic Network. It's quite easy to make a welcoming address because the key thing is to motivate you, as the audience, to be active, to ask your questions, and my colleague said before, at the same time to communicate among yourself about the content of the topics that will be discussed today. But the key thing we hold the fourth forum, Civic Network ОПОРА, are actively communicating on this topic every year. They invent new reasons to talk about. And today we have a unique opportunity, which is most important today. I mean, communications between the government, the local government in the field of transformation, digital transformation, digitalization, as it is now fashionable to say in Ukraine. Under the pandemic of coronavirus, we understand the services, access to information, important actual one, receiving services from local governments, and for every citizen becomes a question of personal safety and safety of territorial communities and the country. Therefore, I hope this communication will establish contacts between local government and central government, because being in the capital city bubble is probably easy, as the government people have to leave the comfort zone, and they have to discuss what's necessary as a level of community, what's necessary for every citizen. And this is a key event for today. I wish you fruitful work, as well as to be frank, to be honest, and also basically to go for transformation as a result of it. Now I would like to give the floor to Madam Anna Petnitska, from a long-standing partner that is Europe. Anna, with huge experience So Tech Soup, so she has a lot of experience in the organization.
Hello, everybody. Dear Deputy Prime Minister, distinguished participants, it's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of TechSoup Europe. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see you in person, but I hope that you're doing well despite these challenging times. As it was already said, it's the fourth PDF Ukraine, first took place in 2016. We co-organized this event together with ОПОРА и Państwo as a joint initiative of Transparency Network. In a moment, Krzysztof Izdebski is going to tell you more about the initiative and the work that we are doing together in Central and Eastern Europe. TechSoup is a global non-profit organization started in 1987 in San Francisco, and I have the pleasure to lead its European headquarters based in Warsaw. Our core mission is to support NGOs and activists by providing technology products, software and hardware, but also creating and facilitating trainings related to technology. In Ukraine, we work closely with Good Resource Center. The main reason I'm here on this stage today is the work that we are doing in Ukraine in close partnership with Ukrainian organizations like ОПОРА and GURD. Our work is focused on good governance and transparency. This initiative is called Danimist. We will share some lessons learned later today. My colleague Nedim is going to run one of the panel discussions. This work is focused on 35 medium and small cities in Ukraine, for instance, Kolomea, Dubno, Poltava. We provided IT assistance to local governments so they can implement the regulation 835 related to open data. This assistance led to launching 7 open data platforms to this day. But at the same time, we're working actively with NGOs, activists, and local communities and officials in order to enable people to use the open data in practical way, creating technologies, applications that are helping, that are contributing to higher standards of public services and living. Let me finish by saying that it's truly impressive to observe how much work has been done in Ukraine in the area of open data as a part of digital transformation reforms, and how persistent NGOs and activists are despite huge challenges that your country is facing. As a member of Transparency Network, I just would like to say that there's so many things that you can share from Ukraine to the world, that we can learn from you, and I would encourage you to follow not only the Personal Democracy Forum, but to join other initiatives of the Transparency Network and share your amazing experience. Thank you for joining us. Have a great event.
Пані Анно, дуже дякую вам. І ще ми також дякуємо ОБСЄ БДІПЛ за
Thank you, Anna. We would like to thank OSCE of ODIHR for providing expert support and organizational support for today's Forum of Personal Democracy. From that organization, I would like to invite Katarzyna Krakowska, First Deputy Director of ODIHR, and she's responsible for activity of organization of elections, democratization, human rights, and tolerance. Madam Katarzyna, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And I will just join our partners to welcome you all to the Personal Democracy Forum Ukraine, which, as mentioned, is the first PDF to be held online. And I want to offer a personal reflection. We have always been starting online meetings during the pandemic with saying how beautiful it would be to meet in person and how regretful it is that we have to meet online. And one participant told me recently, shouldn't we count an ability to be online as our blessing? The fact that we can still connect, that we have the tools, the methodologies, the technologies to do so is something really amazing and something we should be grateful for. So I'm really grateful that we have this technology, that we could do the fourth PDF together. Also a great thank you to our partners, TechSoup Europe, ОПОРА и Państwo Foundation and Transparency for the vision, for the dedication, for the hard work in bringing us all together today. We live in an age of rapidly developing technologies and information-based societies, and this presents both challenges and opportunities of e-governance. I think that more than ever before, in the middle of this global pandemic, digital transformation has been decisive in allowing democracies to continue functioning effectively. Because at its best, the combination of technology and democracy can really strengthen the role of citizens. It can improve participation, it can make inclusion stronger. Technology can also reduce costs and make the risks of abuse of public resources smaller by increasing possibilities for accountability. E-governance practices can help citizens to exercise their rights to access public information and to participate in inclusive decision-making. They can support greater transparency and accountability of public institutions, and they can create a more vibrant dialogue with society. So there is a lot of positives that we can take from technologies. And as countries in the region continue their journeys towards more open and responsive systems of governance, leaders from both government and civil society need to be aware of the significant assistance that technology can offer to these efforts. We have seen in today's health crisis that the uptake of new technologies in multiple areas has really accelerated, and many state institutions started implementing unprecedented changes at unprecedented speed to adapt to the new reality. We have seen democratic institutions across the OSCE region, including parliaments, governments, courts, who have quickly adapted to the new ways of working that the pandemic dictated, who showed flexibility, adjusted their systems, and embraced new technologies. And Ukraine, in many aspects, is a relevant example of this wider regional trend. Many reforms in Ukraine have already included elements of digital transformation. And one example that I was very interested to learn about is that Verkhovna Rada has continued to function during the lockdown because of a dedicated e-parliament strategy that had ICT solutions instrumental to ensure that it could continue interaction between the parliament and citizens. But despite all these positive developments, we can expect some institutions to show resistance to the change that is necessary to introduce in a meaningful way these ICT solutions, just because it is so different from the traditional ways of working. At the end of the day, e-governance requires political will to change rules and procedures. And these changed rules and procedures should put citizens at the center of all reforms. Ukraine has a strong regulatory framework for the implementation of e-government and e-services, but it is really important to make sure that coherent digital transformation happens at all levels, and that self-governing regional bodies and smaller cities are not left behind. Because they often end up on the wrong side of the digital divide. What's also important is that we need to recognize the many benefits, but we also have to remember the risks that digital technologies can pose to our democratic infrastructure. We have recently published a report on the OSCE Human Dimension commitments and state responses to COVID-19 pandemic. And in this report, we precisely showed risks that new technologies can bring. And we listed things such as negative effects on our right to privacy and other fundamental freedoms. This is particularly the case if the introduction of technologies is not transparent, if it is not voluntary at each step, reliable, free of commercial interest, and proportionate to their purpose. Or if emergency measures are prolonged beyond a temporary period of urgent necessity. So certain measures that we have seen introduced to curb the spread of COVID-19 created security and data privacy risks, and we consider these security and data privacy risks at times quite serious. For especially for people in vulnerable situations and people in marginalized groups. And so it is really important to make sure that when we embrace new technologies, we do not let progress on human rights slip back. So let's use the 2 next days to discuss both the opportunities and challenges that the digital transformation can bring to our democracies. I'm sure there will be many inspiring examples, and we will have a possibility to assess what we can do and what we can do more and better to make sure that democracy in Ukraine and in the broader region can fully benefit from the ongoing introduction and strengthening of new technology use, while making sure that we are not sacrificing any of our hard-won rights. And we at ODIHR, of course, are continued to be committed to support your important efforts in this direction. Thank you very much.
Пані Катажино, дякую і вам. І,
Madam
звичайно,
Katarzyna, I would like to thank you as well. Of course, this forum would not be fully fledged without our strategic partners. We have cooperated with for quite many years, who are the colleagues and friends of ours. IPANSTVO Foundation, represented by Mr. Krzysztof Wiedawski, the Director General, who is also the main face of PDF in Central and Eastern Europe. Krzysztof, please have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Irina. Good morning, Olha. It's my pleasure to open the fourth PDF Ukraine. And I will say that I regret that we're not meeting in person this time, but I hope we'll have a good time together. But first of all, we'll see some effects of what is going on at the conference, because it is important for us not only to meet during the events like this, but also to cooperate throughout the year. So apart from the IPANSTVO Foundation, I'm also have a pleasure to invite you for the event in the name of Transparency Network. This is the community of Central and Eastern European organizations that deals with transparency, increasing public participation with the usage of technology. We do organize events, we do researches, we do other projects. And I think it's particularly important during these times, because the challenges are similar, and it not only actually in the terms of COVID, but in any case of challenges we see with what's happening with democracies and with states and with societies. And those challenges are very often similar. And we should therefore looking together for solutions, how to solve these problems and challenges. And the difficult times we are living now, and these are extra challenges for the state and the society. And some democracies become more vulnerable. Some authorities start to play with rights and freedoms, sometimes much beyond what is proportionate in a democratic state. But for the civic tech community globally, and particularly in Central and Eastern Europe, and of course in Ukraine, it was a signal to double the efforts to tackle corruption, to secure public participation in decision-making, to support local communities, and to innovate how the state operates. In many cases, members of Transparency Network community were cooperating, learning from each other, sharing best practices. And this is also of what one of the Transparency Networks event is, which is PDF Ukraine. Enjoy the event, enjoy PDF Ukraine, and learn from each other. And let's cooperate more on a daily basis. Have a great 3 days. Thank you so much.
дуже дякую, Кшиштофе, дуже дякую усім організаторам, усім,
Thank you, Krzysztof. I would like to thank all the organizers, everybody who helped in preparation of today's PDF. As I said before, the format is nearly usual online. I hope that next year it will be possible to bring everyone together physically rather than virtually. And we shall not take more of your time. We shall start the first thematic panel of today. I can see the minister joined us. The first topic, government and local governments, how to provide for well-balanced digital transformation. This panel will be moderated by Olga Ivazovska, and I give her the floor. Thank you, Irina. Indeed, we have interesting first panel. Very politicized, ambitious speakers, Mr. Mikhail Fedorov, Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine, and also the Minister for Digital Transformation of Ukraine. He will have the introductory speech, and after that, we shall have a discussion with our panelists. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. I hope you can see me well and you can hear me well. 1 year ago, our Ministry of Digital Transformation was established. We have 4 particular objectives, and actually those objectives determine how we move forward from the perspective of central government and from the perspective of liaison with local governments. That's very important. It looks to me that objectives are most important, clear objectives to be understood on the central level, on the local level. It is important in the times of turbulence in order to formulate the work in the right way. We have 4 particular objectives. The first objective is 3 years we would like to digitize all public services which are provided in our country and take them from offline into online. Another objective is to teach 6 million Ukrainians basic digital literacy. Digital divide in the field of digital skills is a barrier for development of the digital state. Our next objective is to cover our Ukraine by 95% with high-speed and mobile internet. And the 4th objective is to increase IT share, the share of creative industry in GDP of our country up to 10%. Today this is 3.7%. Those are 4 objectives of our ministry that in the beginning of its creation, even before it was created, we have established for ourselves. Based on those objectives, we have created organizational structure at the level of the country. We have the ministry, which is planning the policy I'm the leader of. We have the committee in the parliament, which actually approves the laws and supports us on the legislative level, which is very important to implement the projects. Attention, please. We have launched at the level of each ministry the deputy for digital transformation. We have created the institution, deputy minister for digital transformation in every ministry. We have the right, we have the legal and normative right at the level of every oblast administration also to have a deputy head for digital transformation. And the cities began to appoint deputies for digital transformation. We have clear objectives, and we have the representative and its organizational structure within every ministry. And we have the opportunity to appoint, and now we already have deputy leaders for digital transformation in every oblast administration, and even in the municipalities, we have some. And we went even further. We have created the Department of Regional Digitalization because we have specificity in the country. 90% of the public funds is the central services, centralized services, government services, and only a small share of services defined locally. And for that, it's determined locally. And for that, for this reason, it is important for us to maximize simplification services on the government level and to make sure people can receive online or via the service centers, so all those administrative services. When we do that in a centralized way, we have actual issue of development of smart city, simplification of life of people in particular cities and municipalities. Therefore, we have the Department of Digital Information, which is focused on development of the strategy of digital transformation of small cities and towns and provinces of Ukraine. And it's very important to share that experience between the regions because there are quite many good practices developed in particular cities. We have the real divide in development, therefore it's useful to share that experience. Therefore, today we have a unique historical organizational structure at the level of the state. We have a clear strategy and we actively move forward. You know that we have launched the DIA portal to receive public services, one-stop shop and mobile application. Just in the month of October, 300,000 Ukrainians have for the first time received access to 4G. We actively develop that direction. Next time we will connect 10,000 facilities of social infrastructure to internet. We taught Ukrainians basic digital literacy. We have registered ECT project actively. We have worked during this year, and we began to implement and already implemented a large number of projects. In terms of liaison, how to operate correctly with local governments, when Ukraine is in the process of decentralization, when, on the other hand, the vast majority of public services is provided online, I believe that the maximally effective instruments are specific objectives and leadership liaison with the regions. That's important not only administratively. Secondly, a renewal of the legislation to regulate relations between the regions and the central government in order to implement the projects. And the third one is operational capability. It's important to have capable managers in the regions, to keep them trained, to share the experience, to involve them into what we are doing and to measure efficiency of their work. For example, as far as instruments are concerned, how to motivate and stimulate people. For example, we have sorted out and created a plan of digital transformation for next year for every ministry. We have budgeted that. Our ministry has received financing for the next year. There will be the budget approved in the second reading. And now we introduce a digital approach in every ministry, a unified approach. Therefore, we shall have a dashboard, public dashboard of all the projects in our country, where is a responsible person, where every Ukrainian can access the website to see how many projects in that ministry, how they're going to launch the service, who is responsible, whether he or she will manage to launch the project, and so on. Creating such a system of coordinates that will stimulate development of managers and also implement projects. Therefore, if to make a short summary, today in Ukraine, the digital country is being built in spite of the period when still in the process we have the reform of decentralization, and we are building digital transformation as active liaison with the regions. Gradually, digital transformation will become the uniting non-political idea, and we have the first results. So we have clear understanding what to do in the next years. Therefore, I wish you constructive, efficient today's forum that will last for several days. I wish you efficient panel discussions, and I wish you to develop the ideas that will be involve as many people as possible. And also, I wish you to work with efficient managers who will implement your great and small ideas. I wish everyone a nice day. Thank you, Mr. Fedorov, for these positive words. We shall continue the contentful discussion. If you have an opportunity to answer one additional question, I will be grateful. Ukraine is now in the transition of democracy and digital transformation. You have announced certain objectives about the national level and local levels, administrative vertical which has been created for those objectives. Could you please tell me, in the field of democracy, because in many of our organizations, this aspect is of interest, what kind of objectives do you have? Does it include digitalization of the election process, for example, the local elections, which recently happened and yet not finished, regretfully? And what are the threats in the field of democracy and digital transformation would you understand for the future? Very briefly, we shall not take much of your precious time. Thank you for this question. I'm 100% confident that the future belongs to electronic digital elections. This will take 5, 10, 20 years, but the presidents, mayors, MPs will be elected by online technology. That's 100% sure. Let's have a look at what happens globally and what is happening in our country. The technology develops really quickly. The world is changing. The behavior of people is changing. consumer behavior, consumer culture is growing, digital culture is growing every day. Therefore, we follow that way. When it happens in Ukraine, we would like the alternative way to take place in 2024. For our countries, it's an ambitious objective, but that we need to build efficient infrastructure of the registries, cyber protection, culture of people. We have to teach people, train people. I believe that this way lies through implementation through instruments of direct democracy, transparent budgets, massive opinion polls due to by government services taking decisions in view of such opinion polls, and also launching new product services. When people start using services, they begin to trust the government. They see it really works, and then in reality we have an opportunity to introduce electronic elections. Therefore, for the next year, we have one of the priority objectives to make on the basis of DIA application an opportunity to do massive opinion polls that we can take decisions on the central level and local levels to make maximum interaction, communication with Ukrainians, and actually to introduce and develop that culture of direct democracy. We have a great objective of launching electronic elections. If over this period we can reach 70 to 80% of our way and reach many victories and build the infrastructure and provide those services, it will be a great achievement. Therefore, we move in that direction. The future belongs to it, and next year Ukrainians will be able to make use of the elements of e-democracy via DIA application that we actively develop. Thank you, Mr. Vice Prime Minister, for your time and for your answers. We shall, of course, follow the progress in the Ukrainian government. Now we move to the panel discussion that will be attended by three super qualified and well-known speakers. Among the first one, Valeria Ioan, Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation. I hope she will show up and we can talk with her on the topic, in particular of education and communications and transformation and plans of the ministry about local government and central government. You have 5 minutes. I would like every speaker to speak, and then we can move to the discussion among the speakers. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. Really, I would like to continue the presentation of our minister and concentrate and tell you about the achievements of our ministry for the last year. As it was mentioned by Michal, we have 4 strategic objectives for the coming 3 years, and we have the first results so we can openly speak about. First of all, we have created a DIA project. It's a brand of the digital state, also the ecosystem of 5 projects. The first project is application of DIA, document on smartphone. It's used by more than 5 million Ukrainians. And as of today, in the DIA application, there are such documents as digital driver's license, passport, travel passport, insurance policy, digital student's card, tax number, children's birth certificates, and the reference of internally displaced person. Recently, we launched another function of the application. This is sharing of documents. One can share a digital copy of the documents to receive the service. Also, it's used when, due to the legislation, it's necessary to lose the copy of the document. It's about the operations which do not exceed 5,000 hryvnia. In addition to the application, DIA includes the portal of public services. DIA, in 3 years, we shall make available all the services for the citizens and for the business. As of today, on that portal, one can find about 50 different services. Another third project, which is included in DIA, this is DIA City project. The main idea of that project is to create the first virtual business country, as the first in the world, that will have the social inclination for several spheres. For example, this is about IT industry and creative industry. In addition, DIA ecosystem will include another 2 projects. One of them is DIA Business. This is a national project for development of entrepreneurship, which has two components: one-stop shop for entrepreneurs, which is used by more than 500 million entrepreneurs. And on the portal, there are quite many different services, in particular, free consultancy on 50 directions, a free national online school for the entrepreneurs, macro infrastructure, organizational support of businesses, also catalog of services and capabilities, online exhibitions. Also, export portal will be launched, and also financial products for small and medium business. The portal is now translated into English language, and very soon will be launched for B2B communications between Ukrainian entrepreneurs and those from the rest of the world. Another part of the business is opening offline centers, hubs for support of entrepreneurs in every city of Ukraine. As of today, 2 such centers are operational in Kharkiv and Mykolaiv, and by the year end, we are also planning to do several openings in such centers. Future and incumbent entrepreneurs may also receive free consultations in those directions that are of interest to them in the format they need. For example, most of the questions nowadays of the entrepreneurs come about access to financing, taxation, legal support, fundraising, and other 50 topics are also available. It's also possible to attend educational events free of charge, masterclasses, workshops, and have the product registered, and quite many other things. Another product which is part of the DIA ecosystem is digital education. Our objective is to teach 6 million Ukrainians digital literacy within 3 years. As of the end of December of last year, the research has demonstrated that 53% of Ukrainians have digital literacy below the basic level. In order to improve that, we have created a project with 2 components. The first one is National Educational Online Platform, DIA Digital Education, with 40 educational movies in Ukrainian language on the topic of digital literacy, or those having the component of digital literacy. The movies are created in the entertainment format, so for people to make it more interesting to study. Also in micro education with short series and testing after every series, and the opportunity to pass the final test to have a certificate on every topic. The topics are diverse, from basic digital literacy, ending with more advanced topics like AI, or tomorrow we launch new educational movie about cryptocurrencies for citizens. In basic human language, we explain what it is, who needs that, and how to work with it. Today, 360,000 Ukrainians, we believe it will be about 500,000 Ukrainians by the end of this year, who passed education on the platform DIA Digital Education. 2 weeks ago, we have launched the first national test of digital literacy, which is called Digital Grammar. A number of questions on various competences of digital literacy for every Ukrainian to understand where they have the gap on which topic, and to improve that knowledge directly on the portal. Another part of is a network of online hubs with accessing internet and digital gadgets, where every Ukrainian can free of charge learn digital literacy. We have about 30,000 hubs. Those are libraries and also centers for public services, schools and universities, and also private sector, which agrees to help us in that. Speaking briefly about our main objectives, maybe that's all. I will be happy to participate in the discussion and add more in the process of the discussion. Clarification question, to your mind, who is the most grateful audience? Because quite many products and resources created, but where do you feel the positive feedback, where you would feel that this work has positive consequences? You know, those products were created for various segments of the target audience. Of course, we receive positive feedback for each of our projects. As a person responsible for the direction of digital education and for DIA business direction of working with entrepreneurs, I can clearly say that for those 2 projects, we are receiving quite many positive feedback, also negative feedback. or constructive criticism that we also take into account. Thank you. Please stay with us. Now we move to the next speaker, Mr. Michal Kony. He was member of European Parliament, elected in the territory of Poland, and he was also leader of a similar ministry in 2011 in the Republic of Poland. Accordingly, he has a lot of things to share. How that process of digital transformation began in Poland, what were, to your opinion, positive consequences and as well as negative lessons that don't have to be repeated in Ukraine, and what are the trends in the European Union in general, what Ukraine should focus at?
Thank you very much. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for invitation for this excellent meeting and discussion. I appreciate what was presented by the deputy, by the minister and the deputy minister of digitization in Ukraine, because I remember in the autumn of 2014, when I have started my duties as a member of the European Parliament, and also cooperation with Ukraine, we have discussed about Green Book, how to prepare the Green Book on digital issues in Ukraine. It was done, it was prepared, discussed. After that, I have participated in discussions on white paper and white book. And of course, the Ukraine started its own journey to the digital world. What is the most important from my perspective? Firstly, when I was a minister of digitalization in Poland, we decided to prepare the project Digital Poland. It was focused on many areas, many issues, but it was also addressed to the governmental money and European money, supporting those kinds of projects which were important for digital development. And on the other hand, we decided to create a special committee, a special council in the Council of Ministries for the Ministry of Digitization, inviting all ministries to discuss about digital issues. As it was mentioned by Michal Fedorov, that now the digital responsible persons are in all ministries in Ukrainian government. This is very important, but it's from organizational point of view. But what is crucial, I think, now, it's related to the topic of this conference, it's also important for the democracy development. What does it mean? How I want to explain it. Firstly, I want to emphasize two areas: digitalization of administrative services at all levels, governmental level and especially local level. It is related to the possibility using electronic channels to register birth, to register business activity, to register me, and to use ID to register some and to ask for some administrative decisions. What is the added value for this issue when those administrative services are going online? Firstly, this is much more transparent. Secondly, it is much more friendly for users. Thirdly, it is much more effective because it's much more speedy than relations between administration and citizens in the normal paper analog situation. So I think it's very, very important to prepare it. But what is the background for this new model of relations between citizens and administration? Trust. It means that on both sides should exist some key principles and rules. Firstly, openness. Secondly, full respect to the privacy protection. And third, what is also important, security, because I think that security is a key issue for users, for citizens to use digital channels in communication with governments or local authorities. And in addition, I want to raise the question of opening the data, because I think it's also the possible benefit. It is important because at the level of cities, at the level of government, of course, there are many data. And I think that it is crucial to open those data, to give the citizens the possibilities to participate in better understanding of many areas, and also to participate in decision-making processes. Opening and open data are related to the European Directive on Public Information Access and reuse of information and data. And it is crucial when we want not only to give to the citizens the possibility to know what is going on in some areas, but also it's important for the business development. When we are opening those data for small businesses, for example, they are ready to prepare some applications related to the traffic questions and problems, related to the information for residents, and so on and so on. So it is also very effective for the everyday life. And when I'm talking about participation of citizens in democratic processes, it means not only participation in consultancies, but it should be clear that if we are going from the analog era to the digital era, it should be clear that all consultations should go through digital platforms. Also, there are many new possibilities at the local level, especially when we are discussing about participatory budgets. It means that the local authorities are asking people, what do you want to achieve, to make, and we are offering some financial sources to realize it, to implement it. And there is some kind of competition between some projects, but it gives the citizens and the group of citizens the feeling of the participatory democracy, and the feeling in some decision-making processes. And also decision-making processes, it means that we need to take into account the voice of citizens. When we are discussing, for example, climate challenges, it's better when we are involving citizens in citizens panels to discuss some issues, because it's important for the social and citizens dialogue, and it is important for the future to make some decisions much more effective and implementable. And the last point, what we need if we want to achieve those responsive administration in the relations between administration of all levels and citizens, and participatory models, building the democracy and the feeling of e-participation for citizens. We need to have, from technical point of view, interoperability at the semantic level. We need to transfer many services and activities done by administration from the analog era to the digital solutions. We need to implement all conditions for fulfilling rules important for the digital rights, as privacy protection and security protection. It also requires, Minister Fedorov mentioned it, digital literacy, because it's important how we can involve citizens, not only from the younger generations, but also from the elderly generations. It's important their skills and competences at the area of digital possibilities. And also we need to involve all institutions, because it's important to have all public institutions involved in the processes of digitization. And the last point, it's important, we have to ensure the proper quality of infrastructure network. Ukraine is on the way to build 4G, but on the other hand, we need to remember that 5G is coming, and we need to be prepared. I'm not sure if I have time, but I want to say the last sentence and express it very strongly. All of those issues from the Ukrainian perspective should be prepared, discussed, and implemented with a view that European framework is also needed. Because when we are discussing in the European Union and implementing GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, or e-privacy directive, or data governance solutions, which will be presented by the European Commission in a few days, or some solutions important for interoperability, or implementation of 5G, or e-identification solutions, which is important for the whole area of the European Union. Thinking about future membership of the Ukraine in the European Union, we need also at the same time in Ukrainian legislation to implement some key solutions addressed to the digital issues in the European Union.
Дякую. Дякую пану Боні.
Thank you, Mr. Boni. And I have a very short question. When you implemented those tasks in Poland, those programs in Poland, did you have a partnership with local self-governance? I understand that administrative structure is different in Poland, but local self-governance, did they become your partners in that work? Did you have problems, and what kind of problems did you have in local self-governance?
Yeah, of course, because Poland is decentralized. We can discuss about current situation when the government and the ruling party is not so involved in supporting local authorities. But when I have started this project in 2012, it was clear that we need to find some solutions, not only for the government, but especially for local governments, because many administrative services are done at the local level. So if we wanted to make those services much more friendly, transparent, and effective, it was clear that we had to cooperate with local governments. So there were many projects addressed to local governments. And of course, because there are some organizations of local governments and regional governments, we have started the cooperation with discussions with them. And after that, we created the model of collaboration, permanent collaboration, implementing some new solutions and also discussing about the legal framework which was needed to implement some new solutions. So it was clear that we understood how important it is to indicate those part of administrative services as part of services done by local governments. And on the other hand, it was clear for us that when we are discussing about the new possibilities for e-democracy, participatory democracy, by using electronic channels, for example, it was also important not on the governmental level, but especially at the local level. And I think that many local governments, local authorities were involved. And we have decided also for cooperation and collecting some best practices and showing those best practices from the one part of Poland we presented those practices to the second part of Poland, to the different kind of local authorities, and I think it was a dissemination of those best practices. So it was crucial because, on the other hand, the real relations between citizens and in the decentralized model, I think it's much more democratic, is based on relations between citizens and local authorities. If we want to make it much more effective and modern, we need to use digital solutions and digitize those kind of services.
Дякую за ваші відповіді.
Thank you very much for your answer. Please stay with us until the end of this panel discussion. I would like to speak to our online participants of this conference. Don't forget to ask your questions to panelists, and after the next presentation, we'll communicate on those issues that are interesting to you, or we will think about different issues that are important for you. Next speaker is Ivan Lugaire, who's the Deputy Minister of Development of Communities and Territories. Ivan, hello. I will speak like this to you. You are a part of the government. You're a public servant. Maybe you will not be sincere when you speak about the problems in local self-governance, but government initiatives to digital transformation. But open the window to us. What are the tasks of the ministry in this field? And if those issues are not important, not very important to your ministry, so what's the position of local self-governance of the processes which are related to digitalization? And what are the key needs in this process? Thank you, Olha. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and to speak about digital transformation, because it seems like the Minister of Digital Development, which is responsible for local self-governance, transformation is not very important for us. No, we have some projects on digital transformation, and the most important for us is about giving powers to local governments on architecture control, just to prevent corruption in the field of building, planning, architectural. There are several projects in our ministry, and we cooperate with different ministries, and like how to develop a cadastre, united cadastre, and we wanted to put together all the cadastres. We wanted to have just one digital cadastre, and then we can see the whole picture. Which are the conditions in different cities, and what decisions are they taken on the local government level, and where they have illegal building or constructions, and so we can come to transparent planning through Ukraine, and it doesn't matter what kind of a community that is. It could be from a small village or to a big city like Kiev. The second important project and in the ministry is electronic system of city building. So different conditions, different limitations as to construction. It should be transparent without interference of public servants, and so there's a project of address register, and integration with municipal registers. And on one hand, that's an important project for local self-governance, because it creates a fiscal base, a tax base to collect taxes from real estate, and those taxes will go to local budgets. And here it's important to have a legal component, to pay attention to a legal component, because one register will prevent different tricks with property. So it's a very important project. Also, there's a full audit of the infrastructure of local self-governance. So that's very important for us, and that would allow us to be efficient in planning our budget policy, and to calculate the needs of funding the infrastructure. for the next period. We are done with administrative result. We have 1,400 digital communities, amalgamated communities, and may as well added. And when we speak about rebuilding the infrastructure and providing public services like education, different administrative processes, and other important social services in communities, such an electronic system of real estate and information cards will allow us to plan the budget policy better. How much is needed for the structure to provide equality and accessibility of public services to the population. One important issue for us is a digital project and how public money is spent, and investment in digital economy, regional infrastructure through different funds like regional development funds and through other budget programs. In the ministry, and there is a fund of regional development. It's about 9 billion for the next year, and then it will be bigger. And for that money to be spent efficiently to the purpose, it's important to have an instrument. I mean, a digital system of project management. How to use that money from that fund of regional development. And there will be a portal, and there will be key modules, and there will be a transparent system to select projects, assess projects, and there will be all the protocols, results of the vote on regional commissions and assessment of projects. So it will prevent interference, political interference or personal interference in when we select projects that will be supported from the national budget. And also there will be transparency as to the projects and what kind of permits will be provided, how it will be introduced, put into practice, etc. So key issues in such projects. That's an important instrument for us. On the level of the government and local self-government, it is important to involve citizens to decide on priorities, which programs should be funded. So we think about how to reform the public budget. There's a separate fund for the projects that will be voted by in territorial communities. And there will be a system of selection of those projects. And that is also an important program for us. And it will be implemented in local self-governance. There are some projects around municipal budgets. The register of real estate, that is a key issue for us. We are working with the Ministry of Finances and with the Tax Committee to integrate municipal registers of real estate, and they should be integrated into the national register. And we need to think how to collect that property tax and how that can be collected and how it will go to local budgets. That's one important project, one more. As to digitalization, because of the end of the administrative reform and the reform of local self-governance, there are two key registers. One of them is like the register of all territorial communities, and we needed to have them in one register, and the territorial communities on the district level, regional level. The register is not efficient for them. It is done by the Parliament of Ukraine. That's why we change. There are some amendments, and now the Ministry of Regional Development will be responsible for that. And so it will be a key project which is important for local self-governance. And one more register, which is planned to be created. It's a united register of decisions of local self-governance. So it's because of the reform of powers of governments and as to legal or supervision over decisions of local self-governance. And for that tool to be, for that instrument to be efficient, we need to introduce the register of decisions of local self-governance when there is no need to send and to receive documents from one place to the other. And to do the legal analysis. Everything should be automated. It should be in one register. There's the session of the local council, for example, all the decisions that were taken. They will be put into that register of local self-government, and there will be no need to publish them somewhere on websites of local self-governments, because many communities don't have their websites, and so they don't publish. They don't make public their decisions. And so, but if we have such a register, so all local self-governments will have access to it, and automatically they will make public their decisions in that register of local self-governance. So those are key directions, key programs within our ministry related to digital transformation. There are some systems like big construction program, like lots of facilities in 2020. It's hundreds of facilities, hundreds of schools and kindergartens and sport infrastructure. In 2021, the program will continue, but the program will have some regional development projects and economic growth of the regions, and how to improve the quality of services and life, etc., etc. So, efficient instrument to implement that program is important for us. Thank you, Ivan. Key projects as to our field in the ministry. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Ivan, for a very broad presentation. I can say, wow. So you have lots of tasks in your ministry. I have a very short question. As far as I know, there's a problem of registers of residents of territorial communities, and that's a basic need to decide, for example, how many people live in a territorial community, to calculate services which should be provided to them. Do you have an example of successful community which has a very good register of local residents, and also for others to learn from them? The best. Kyiv is the best in this sense. It is related to the fact that Kyiv administration, they set up their own register, and for 3 years they were working on that. And we can say that Kyiv has, in Kyiv there is a clear picture how many people live in Kyiv. In Lviv also, they have their own municipal register, but the key problem is that they are not integrated with the state democratic register, national register. They use that data only on the level of the city, not on the level of the country. So we are working with the Ministry of Digital Transformation on recharging the statistics department, because they collected a lot of data which is not used. We would like to change the approach to it, and we would like everything there to be digital, and for key data to monitor development of the territories, for example, to take objective decisions. So and to use the data, we would like everything there to be digital, and we would like to have access to municipal statistics and we should not register, for example, milk products or dairy products in some regions. This is not very important for us. And still, they collect that information on regional level, and they provide it to the government, but it is not used on the national level. So we should reduce the number of data collected, and we should just set on the priority and what they should collect, and so what is important for us in the next year. Now we will have questions from our colleagues online, and the first, the question to Valerian, that's the Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation, and partially to Mr. Fedorov, but he's absent, and so Valeria will have to answer to this question. So there are two questions from the audience for us to come back to that. The idea of state board. There is an opinion that that's a good idea, but the text, will there be a text for just the previous consideration? Thank you very much for the question. As to the state boards, and like for every project that we do, we have a discussion usually within the working groups or in working groups, or we report it to public council. If you are participating, if you are in a working group, or if you would like to participate, you send a request to our website. You should send your question, and you will get a clear answer. Usually, all our projects are discussed. We discuss them in working groups and with the council. So I don't see any problem with this. So the answer is go to the website of the ministry, the email, and you can participate. We try to answer to all. There's a feedback form, and so you can send a letter and you will get the answer. Yes, the Ministry of Digitalization should respond to letters. And the question that you made is, are you planning to involve new communities? Do you communicate with local governments?
Є людина, яка якраз займається
We have a person who is responsible for this, for the work with CBTO, with communities and with Importnik. And I know that he started to work on this. So the strategy of digitalization of regions, and they discuss projects in the communities, and every time whether there is a new deputy on digitalization regions, that communication will be improved. Also, we have deputy minister who is responsible also for the work with communities in the context of the work of legal centers, legal information centers. So there will be a new portal which is called cooperation, and for us to improve the work with the communities. Thank you very much. Next question to Michal Kony, and you spoke about the best practices of local governance in your country, in Poland, that you analyzed the data, you were trying to get the best practices, and you're trying to spread it to other regions. Can you describe it as a process? Did you have a systemic monitoring? How the best practices were collected? Did you collaborate with local self-governance associations? So could you describe the format, how you did it? How you collected data on the best practices? Microphone.
Okay, sorry. We have some organizations at the national level gathering, for example, representatives from cities, representatives from agglomerations, and those organizations are very strong. They are, of course, in participation and in collaboration with the government, because there is something like a common council with representatives of governments and representatives of local authorities. And all solutions, all projects, all legislation are going through this council, this committee. So it is important. But on the other hand, when we knew, for example, that there are some exciting ideas on citizens' participation in some decision-making processes. For example, in which place of the city should be built the new theater or cinema or some kind of school and something like that. And for the much more democratic decision, the local government decided to put this problem at the platform, and all citizens had the possibility to present their views. So I think it was a very simple example of this participatory model. But when we have discussed about those projects, or for example, the participatory budgets, or for example, how to organize just before the new school year, the process of decisions, which kind of school pupils and their families, their parents are choosing, and also it was organized by the through digital channels. So those kind of practical solutions, supporting and efficient, were disseminated between local authorities. And of course, in some areas, it was clear. For example, now this is out of the government decisions, but I think that in many local authorities, it is clear that they should do it. For example, the new model of exchanging information about the air, if the air is fresh and clear or not, yes, and there are some digital solutions allowing to collect the data and information from different places all over the city, for example, and it's bringing the information to the local authorities, and this is a warning system to address to citizens, to residents, what is going on and how this situation look like. So I think there are many, many possibilities. And of course, what was important, this is the last point, because when we can talk about the dissemination of best practices and practical solutions, but on the other hand, for us, it was important to ensure that for those different kind of projects, opening the new model of relations between authorities and citizens by using digital channels should be financed. And we have discussed many, many times that it should be the part of the national budget addressed to those issues, but also we discussed how to use European money for this. For example, in the perspective of 2013-2020, we have used many European money to establish the proper infrastructure, network, internet infrastructure in some regions using European money. So projects, best practices, dissemination, and on the other hand, some guarantees for financing those projects.
Боні, і я ще би хотіла задати.
I wanted to ask the question to Ivan Lukeria. It's about the plans. You have a lot of plans that are related to local self-governance. So did you have assessment of the needs of stakeholders? Because the ministries are blamed, but everything is in a centralized way. So they send from the top decision to the bottom, and then there is a sabotage. So all the initiatives, digital initiatives, you had to do with what they analyzed from the point of view of needs of stakeholders. Because local self-governance is very different in Ukraine. It's like, thank you. Everything we are doing, it's about local self-governance and for local self-governance, from local self-governance. If you speak about construction of the cities, it's in the dialogue with local self-governance, and we have communicate with the Association of Mayors, with Association of Local Self-Governance, with communities, etc. for the registers, real estate registers and construction in cities. We want that to be in one register, and we don't want local authorities to interfere. If to speak about integration of municipal registers,
Чуємо, ми вас чуємо. Ми вас чуємо, говоріть.
Працює.
Так, так. Працює.
Якщо говорити про інтеграцію
if to
муніципальних,
speak about integration of municipal registers
якщо говорити про інтеграцію там муніципальних реєстрів нерухомості з
on real estate,
реєструючого прав на нерухоме майно, то це також виключно за
that is at the request of local self-governance, because they are thinking about enlarging the taxation.
державний реєструючий прав на нерухоме майно, то набагато краще
And it will be easier if it is integrated, especially in big cities where they have it already, and it's easy to integrate into the national register, and that should be a base for taxation on that real estate, because the local self-governance says administration of local taxes and collection of taxes, and it should be handed down to local self-governance. And for big cities, it's very important. At the request of local self-governance, it is done. If we speak about the website on how to manage projects, again, the most interesting are local self-governance bodies, because they would like to have a transparent mechanism, and they would want to compete transparently. They don't want anyone to interfere into projects that can be funded from a state budget. So, if a brief answer to your questions, yes. So we consult with local self-governance, and we work to satisfy their needs. Very good answer, and it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. And I have a very short question to all. We don't have a lot of time left, just a minute and a half, and it's about security. Because services, registers, accumulation of data, that is related with some risks. And European Union, as Mr. Kony mentioned, they have a discussion about private and public data. And that is an issue, international issue, because not only our personal data, which can be stolen, can be disseminated illegally, but also our better data. What we are doing, what we like, where we are, where we live. So that's a profile of a person that can be identified through absorption of data from different sources, including official. And we know about some such cases when the registers were published that on Petrivka, for example, you could just go and on a disk you can buy data from some registers, state registers. So, which is, in your opinion, what is the level of risk for Ukraine on this issue? Maybe Mr. Kony will speak about risks in EU and understanding of those problems in EU, and what are the possible solutions. But you have only just a minute and a half. Each of you have just a minute and a half. Valeria, thank you very much for your question. The security is an important issue. When I speak about online security, we understand that it's a challenge number one for all the countries, and many ministries are working on that. We, in our ministry, pay a lot of attention to this issue, and in every project that we have, I'm responsible for online security of children, and that's a new direction. And we're working on that for a year, and we hope that by the end of this year, there will be national strategy of online security of children. We understand that especially during pandemic, when we have lots of children who spend lots of time in front of computers, and we have more and more children who do that. And as 12% speak to parents and they understand the content in social networks. We know that only 25% of parents use instruments of filtration of instruments. 42% would like to do it, but they don't know how. So we know that a lot of children meet online with people they don't know. So that's about 50%. So we are very active on this and on training for children, for parents. We train them on threats in the internet. Come and then we explain how to handle that and how we develop different services, hotlines, chatbots, chat rooms to support. Also, we speak to communicate with companies which help us with blocking content, etc. In general, if to speak about, if to speak about our project and relations, and they are safe, and we are trying to speak about that, and we speak about the products. So I will be happy to discuss details if there is a question to details. Thank you, Valeria. We will have to come back to this issue maybe during a different discussion and within a different platform. It's a question to Mr. Bonia. In EU, private data. So is there a discussion about openness and because of digitalization, how important the discussion is?
You know, there are two separated issues. Protection of data, security, especially cybersecurity, and also ensuring the protection of privacy. We have GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, and for this, it is important that users should use their consent. So if they are ready to share your own data, they can click and it will be the expression under some conditions, of course, their consent. And today, when we are discussing about using data for artificial intelligence, using data for new European data spaces in many areas, this is a big discussion how to govern the data and also how to govern those consents done by users, consumers, clients, and citizens. So this is a big issue, and I think that we need to raise and to build the awareness of those problems. This is one side of the problem. Another is related to security, and we have Network Information Security Directive and also Cybersecurity Act. It is related to the critical infrastructures, and the background for those solutions are based on risk analysis, and after that, risk management. It is important to know that, for example, something we could be and we can observe that there are some attacks, some hacking efforts, and so on and so on. After these observations, after patterns, also with using artificial intelligence or algorithms, we can analyze what could be in the future. And we have also European agency responsible for this, ENISA, and ENISA is in cooperation with Europol and also NATO. How it is important, because when we are talking about cybersecurity, we are not only talking about the security of individuals. It is important, of course, but we are also discussing about security of information which we have in companies, for example. So this is a trade war, for example, and we can observe that there are some spy activities and spying in these days are not only related to the persons, but especially to using the internet, the digital possibilities. So we need to create some principles Also, we are working in the European Union on certification schemes, because all digital solutions, all devices, all programs should be certificated. To that time, we have many certifications models in every European countries, but we need to have it at the European level. So when I have raised at the beginning the problem how Ukraine should participate in some debate, discussions, and solving some problems at the European level, it's also the area for common understanding and cooperation between European Union and Ukraine, for example. This model of certification schemes, and as I know, Ukraine is in cooperation with ENISA, this European agency. And the last point, which is also crucial, at the area of security, we also need to understand how important is some kind of cyber hygiene. Cyber hygiene means that our attitudes, our decisions, our everyday behaviors are important for the security at all levels. When we are working as, for example, military officers, when we are working in our research centers, and when we are working as responsible persons in, for example, those data collections at the national level. So there are some legal solutions. The awareness is the key issue, and cooperation of all stakeholders, from individuals via companies to the national institutions and at European level, ENISA.
Дякую за вашу
Thank you very
інформацію.
much for your information. It's very interesting, especially as a supervising organization, which is not only working on digital transformation, but also assesses risks. And on the level in the EU, it will be quite an efficient process. And I have a question to Ivan. I don't know whether he's with us online. Ivan, security and registers, black notaries, but very briefly, please. Your microphone. Our ministry is less involved on security issues. And there are certain standards. Any register which is created in the ministry, we speak about policies, not about IT solutions, because any IT solution for any register goes through certification, and then they get a security certificate, or then we can put it to work, into operation. But our ministry, we order things, we test products. But those registers or web resources, like how to manage their projects, how to assess projects, and to select them, etc., those options are not related to commercial risks, or risk that it can be stolen, or manipulation, assessment, etc. So those are web resources or solutions for managing projects, like funding, etc. If to speak about registers, like construction, city construction registers, they are put into practice until when they pass through certification. Those are good news. This is just a condition. We understand that your ministry is working with different registers. Then we speak about the private data, and you work with public data. And thank you very much. I would like to thank all of you. It was a very good cooperation with international experts and those who work with local self-governance issues, and those who promote digital state in Ukraine. See you in the future. Thank you. I would like to thank all the participants and for your that you are so active and that you were with us. We will will be online at 2:30, and my colleague will work with you, and we hope that it will be interesting with you. We'll have Vadim Bortnik, and he was mentioned, Vanya Onko from Lviv, Kyiv administration, Michal Kony from Poznan city administration. So, stay with us.